Hi, for those who don't know me, my name's Tony Shasma, and this week I had the privilege of reading and summarizing the Curriculum Overload A Way Forward report. This report was published by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and the OECD is an international organization that works to build better policies for better lives. In 2020, the OECD published the Curriculum Overload Report in connection with the Future of Education and Skills 2030 policy in order to balance content and competencies to address new societal demands while not overloading the curriculum. The executive summary states the rapidly changing world places new demands on society and especially the education sector. Skills, attitudes, values, and knowledge about topics such as digital and data literacy, globalization literacy for sustainable development, and computational thinking are ever more relevant. Students need to learn deeper and not more. Their learning time should not be extended, nor should students learn at the surface level. These statements create a tension in the area of curriculum development. As we dive deeper into this report, we will learn about the four dimensions of curriculum overload. As we go through this presentation, you'll find a summary of the OECD report and some thoughts that I have related to things that I've learned throughout this as I was reading through this report. In the first section or the first chapter of the report, there's a significant amount of time spent on the four dimensions of curriculum overload. Those are curriculum expansion, content overload, perceived overload, and curriculum imbalance. One note the authors make regarding curriculum overload on page 11 that is worth repeating is that it is important to note that curriculum overload is not the same as excessive workload for teachers and school leaders. In the next couple of slides, I'm going to go through the four different parts of curriculum overload that were explained in the report. The first one is curriculum expansion, and this refers to the tendency to include new content items in the curriculum in response to new societal demands without appropriately considering what items need to be removed. The report presents several issues regarding curriculum expansion. Specifically, it touches on the difficulty of adding new subjects of instruction when there's already limited space in the curriculum. It touches on how teaching time has virtually been unchanged in the past 10 years, and it discusses the new demands being placed on teachers without receiving proper training, for example, in the use of digital skills. The second dimension of the curriculum overload is content overload, and this refers to the actual dimension of curriculum overload rather than as it is perceived or experienced. Pages 14 to 36 of the report outline considerations to prevent content overload, including curriculum structure, number of subjects or topics taught, the quantity and quality of learning time, appropriate learning levels for students, size and language of curriculum documents. The report notes on page 16 that unrealistic expectations for breadth and depth contribute to content overload. It also emphasizes that clearly defining big ideas can help teachers prioritize essential content without being overly prescriptive. It is worth noting that content overload is driven by unrealistic expectations for retaining both breadth and depth of content within the allotted space and time. So the third dimension discussed in the report is perceived overload, and this refers to the perceived or experienced dimension of overload as reported by teachers and students. The report emphasizes the need to differentiate between actual and perceived overload based on feedback from teachers, administrators, and students. It suggests that policymakers ask critical questions, which are listed here on this slide, to establish the nature of the overload, and possible solutions from OECD partner countries are provided on pages 34 through 36 of the report. And the final dimension discussed in the report is the idea of curriculum imbalance. And this refers to the disproportionate attention given to certain areas of the curriculum at the expense of others without appropriate adjustments in the low priority areas. So, to address the disproportionate attention given to certain areas of the curriculum, some countries or jurisdictions have started to distinguish core versus non core subjects. And this we have heard of this through the United States and in some parts of Canada as well. All right, so chapters 2, 3, and 4 of the report analyze various countries and jurisdictions concerning cross curricular themes. They also tackle the challenges and provide strategies posed by curriculum overload and reflect on the lessons learned from the unintended consequences or outcomes associated with curriculum overload. And in the next number of slides, I'm going to go through each of those. Most of chapter 2 spends a lot of the time explaining, the report explains the following cross curricular themes. So, environmental education and sustainability, local and global citizenship, peace, indigenous knowledge and perspectives, health education and well being, moral values and education, cultural identity and multiculturalism, information community technology, and media. The chapter spends time comparing these themes and discusses the most common ones in the final section. So, to address this idea of curriculum overload, a common theme across countries and jurisdictions is to accommodate emerging societal needs by implementing cross curricular themes. Chapter 2 explains and compares various countries and jurisdictions' attempts to implement this approach. In chapter 3, the title of it is Types of Challenges Faced in Addressing Curriculum Overload. So, this chapter of the report discusses challenges faced by countries and jurisdictions as they address curriculum overload, as well as strategies adopted to address these challenges. This chapter relates curriculum overload in three different areas. There's content expansion, content overload, and curriculum pitch and workload. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to give you a summary of each of those. So, in the report's content expansion section, which covers pages 67 to 73, a key challenge is that new societal demands from interest groups. Two strategies to address this include creating a subject for varying social demands and embedding core cross curricular competencies into existing subjects. When it comes to the content overload section, which is pages 71 to 82 of the report, it highlights challenges like excessive subjects and content duplication across grades, and suggested strategies include enhancing schools' capacity to design their content, defining core content, and eliminating duplication. And finally, the curriculum pitch and workload section, which is pages 82 through 85 of the report, discusses challenges such as homework overload, teacher burden, and balancing comprehensive content with instructional time. Strategies proposed include regulating learning time at home and school and leveraging digital tools to reduce teacher overload. The final chapter of the report when it discusses lessons learned from unintended consequences on managing curriculum overload, they give us 5 key lessons that they've learned. So the first one is keep the right balance between breadth of learning areas and depth of content knowledge. The second one is use focus, rigor, and coherence jointly as key design principles when addressing curriculum overload. The third is be conscious of and avoid homework overload for students. The fourth is be mindful of local decisions leading to curriculum overload for schools. And the fifth key lesson that has been learned is stress curriculum overload as a pressing issue by redefining student success and well-being. So, to wrap up this presentation, here are some final thoughts. Some insights that I have gained on curricular planning and development through this report are as follows. As I explored the OECD report on curriculum overload, I found confirmation of my long held beliefs as a classroom teacher. Curriculum overload is indeed a significant issue. I can now articulate my feelings thanks to the report's insights. The 4 dimensions of curriculum overload highlighted within help me grasp the intricate struggle of balancing time as a finite resource and the reality that curriculum is crowded or overloaded, as stated on page 11 in the report. While examining each dimension, I often found myself agreeing with points such as the pressure we educators face when various actors and interest groups add pressure to reflect their agenda in the curriculum, which is stated on page 12. Although the report is extensive and packed with information, it has deepened my understanding of the efforts required to foster a student-centered learning environment in our schools and classrooms. Some new ideas for implementation in my working context. In Chapter 4 of the report, significant emphasis is placed on developing schools' capacity to design their own content. This is particularly relevant to my working context, as our administration at the privately funded faith-based school in Ontario, where I work, has tasked the teaching staff with this very responsibility. As the report notes on page 80, in-school capacity for curriculum design is of critical importance to managing curriculum overload, and I am eager to implement this approach soon in my own context. So thank you for being part of this presentation. I thank you for taking the time to listen to this recording. And I look forward to interacting with you this week as we discuss the content of this article together. Thank you.